Fighting in Ukraine enters its 80th day. Ukraine's defense minister has warned of a new long phase in the conflict with Russia. Oleksii Reznikov said on Friday he expected very tough weeks ahead. Kyiv says its troops are pushing back Russian forces north of the city of Kharkiv and are reclaiming more villages. Russia's defense ministry says its air forces have attacked an arms depot in Kharkiv and that it has destroyed the production capabilities of a refinery used by the Ukrainian military in the city of Poltawa. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he's willing to talk to Russian President Vladimir Putin, but not via an intermediary. Russia says a direct meeting of Putin and Zelensky can happen, but only after the two sides can reach agreement on major issues. Our Sergio Olmos has more on Ukraine's gains.
Ukrainian armed forces are having a major victory at pushing the Russian forces outside of its second largest city, Kharkiv. Kharkiv has remained in Ukrainian hands, but has been under constant shelling, a battleground between the Russian armed forces who are trying to control that city, especially after they failed to take this city, the capital, Kyiv. Citizens have been living with projectiles raining in on them from artillery and from airstrikes, but now as the Ukrainian armed forces have pushed them nearly out of artillery range, citizens who've been with children living in the metro, underground, in the subway, can now breathe a sigh of relief. In Zaporizhia, there are evacuees from nearby towns, villages, and even Mariupol being brought to receive medical attention and food and to be transported, relocated within other parts of Ukraine.
Foreign ministers of the Group of Seven Nations are backed and giving more aid and weapons to Ukraine as they gathered Friday for an annual meeting. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell announced a further €500 million worth of military support that should be approved next week by the bloc. He also expressed confidence that the EU will agree to an embargo on Russian oil. UK Foreign Minister Liz Truss announced new sanctions targeting people related to Russian President Vladimir Putin, including his ex-wife and cousins. As Kyiv moves closer to joining the European Union, Moscow is sharpening its criticism. Dmitry Polyansky, the first deputy permanent representative of Russia to the UN, says the EU seems headed toward functioning as an arm of NATO. Our Stuart Smith has more details.
Dmitry Polyansky pointed to EU countries becoming the lead supplier of weapons to Ukraine in justifying his statement. He also said Moscow now sees no diplomatic options for resolving the situation in Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, speaking at a meeting of post-Soviet states, didn't go as far as the deputy representative, though, saying that such policy isn't made in New York but by the negotiating teams. But Mr. Lavrov did have serious doubts about what he called the innocuousness of Ukraine's possible ascension to the European Union, saying it's become an aggressive militant player rather than a constructive economic platform. He expressed concern that the EU's heading down a track towards merging with NATO and will end up acting as one of its arms. Stuart Smith, CGTN, Moscow.
Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has spoken with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. The phone call marks the highest level of American contact with a Russian official since the Ukraine crisis began in late February. The Pentagon says Austin urged an end to the conflict and emphasized the importance of maintaining communication. But U.S. officials say the conversation did not resolve any acute issues or appear to signal any change in Moscow's military operations. Several officials described the call as a positive step, but said there was no clear reason why the Russians decided to go ahead with the conversation. Over the past 2 months, the Pentagon has repeatedly said that Russian leaders previously declined to take calls from the U.S.